So I've known Mr. John since I was a little kid. And I'm 5 days away from his oldest son. We were best friends growing up. I was in his son's wedding. I was in his daughter's wedding. I've known Mr. John my entire life. And growing up, he was a second father to me. Like, they were my second family. So everything he just said is 100% true. Like, he's been that person, even for me. And so I'm in kind of a unique place in my life. It's humbling and it's amazing to be here in front of you guys, because when I was growing up and I was your age, there was no 2 youth group. There was a couple people saved at a time, then everybody's gone. It was a mess. We didn't have a good teen group, people to encourage, people to be going through things with. And so I always dreamed of being and having this, what you guys have right now. The problem was that I didn't make it, right? And so a lot of people did, and I wasn't one of them. I did for a while, and I've lived the story of the prodigal son. And I don't want anything that I say to be seeming like I'm making light of that or glorifying that, because it's not the way you want to go, right? But Mr. John was that guy that they were like my second family. I've been nervous ever since I found out he was going first. I was like, oh, he's so good at how he talks and he presents things. I was like, man, I gotta hope I can come through this. But in thinking about it, it's kind of fitting, because he was that for me. He was that guy that I could always be with his family. I could always be with him and look up to him. And I know all of his kids. And when he said that he could name half a dozen or a dozen people who grew up in children's church and who grew up and were where you are now, but now their life's in shambles. When I came back and got saved a year ago, back in this church, me and my brother talked, and we could list over 60 people who we grew up with in this church who were nowhere near here at all. And so it's not something that not everybody makes it back. And I pray constantly, and I really believe there's going to be a revival of church kids coming back. I feel like it's something that God's put on my heart and that God has spoke to me. I can't guarantee that, but I pray for them constantly, because it is heartbreaking, and it hurts me a little bit to be here right now testifying to you as an example of the prodigal son. I'm grateful for it, and I hope to God I can relate to you and connect so you can see it, because like John was saying, to bottle that up and hopefully you never need it, right? But if you ever get to that point, to know that you don't have to get all the way to that point of the prodigal son being in the pigsty, because we know he was in his father's house. He had everything, servants and everything, just like you are now. Just like I remember being where you are. And that's the parallels that I want to draw. Is I tell my son a lot is that he doesn't know who I was at his age, right? He sees me now, and he sees me as, oh, he's not afraid. He has confidence. He talks to anybody, I was not like that at his age, at your age. I wasn't. I was a good church kid. I loved being saved. I loved being in church, helping out, doing ministry. I loved it. But some of it was pride too, because I know I'm a good church kid. I love to help people. I like people. So I like people seeing me as that, right? And so that pride of thinking I'm good and I got this. Then when I came to making certain mistakes in life, I didn't want anybody to know, because I didn't want them to see that other side of me. I liked them seeing me as the good kid, the guy who helps everybody, the guy who loves everybody, right? And so now that I've made these mistakes, I don't want nobody to see that. And instead of dealing with it and repenting right there, it could have been done with. But instead, it snowballed until, how does the church kid who's where you are now, because you can't fathom in your mind, right? That the story that we're talking about, the prodigal son, sometimes it seems so, the devil always tries to lie from the very beginning in the garden, right? He told them, what God's trying to hold back from you is what you want, what you should have. God doesn't want you to have that knowledge because you'll be like him. You'll have this. You're missing out. And that's one of those little catchphrases or new terms that the FOMO, fear of missing out, right? Somebody said the other day, I was like, what the heck are they talking about? But that's the generation we live in. I fear of missing out. What am I missing? What am I not going to get? You have it right here. Trust me, I promise you. You have everything that you want right here. And I feel like I'm in a unique position because I've been where you are. I've been the church kid. I've had that part. And you feel like your parents, they didn't never experience it. Your parents can't really relate all the way. Not all of them. Maybe you might have a parent who grew up in church, but for the most part, your parents were not saved and ended up getting saved. So their experience is a life of sin and now being saved, right? And that's one of the most powerful things that John said, and he told me that on Sunday night, and it's been bouncing in my head ever since. But that's the ultimate goal is, like John said, he caught that revelation, but he never lived the prodigal son life, right? He wasn't one who was saved and went out and then had to come back like that, right? That's what you want. If you can possibly get that revelation and not have to go out in the world and experience it, that'll save you so much heartache and trouble in life. But it'll give you so much blessing because you'll be able to go straight to God's blessing and anointing without having to go through all that stuff to be able to try to get back to it. And I can tell you for sure, you know, like we said, we can name, 60 different people that I know that aren't here. But if you look, you guys have a good amount of people to look up to that did do it. You know, Kevin and Alex, and then, you know, Chris Davis and Alyssa, my sister, John's daughter Alyssa, all these have been here. They haven't gone out and tore their life up and have to come back, right? And so it's a good example to see. Even Pastor Nate Brown and Lindsay, they were both church kids who grew up in church, stayed saved, and got married, and now they're out pastoring. Kelsey and Margot, there's plenty of good examples to look at. And so, do what they did, not what I did. But I just want to try to draw some parallels here of how my life and my testimony now relates to the story of the prodigal son, because growing up in church sometimes is difficult because, like I said, your parents can't relate to that, right? They were unsaved, now they're saved. And so sometimes they can look at you and it feels like they're putting pressure on you, right? Like I remember feeling like I'm supposed to do it all right. I'm supposed to get it all right. I'm supposed to know everything because I've been growing up in church. You know, my dad's Chauncey, got my brother, my sister, all these people around me. I'm supposed to know it every single time. I'm supposed to know all the stories and all the songs, and I'm supposed to know every time what decision to make. And so it can feel like a lot of pressure, right? And so then when I get it wrong, I beat myself up. Oh man, so I was supposed to know that, right? Everybody's probably looking at me thinking that I'm the idiot and I should have known, and how did he mess up, right? In reality, that wasn't true, but that was in my own mind. And sometimes your parents, it feels like they're putting that pressure on you because they want you to get it right. But it's not because, oh, you're supposed to be perfect and get everything right. They know what it's been to be on the other side of that, and they just don't want you to go through it. And so don't feel like they're trying to hold you back from something or keep you from anything. They're trying their best because they don't understand where you're at right now because they haven't experienced it. They grew up, a lot of them in a life of sin as a kid and having to experience things on the other side of abusive parents, alcoholic parents, you know, who knows what they went through that you didn't have to go through, and that's part of the blessing. Then I've been out there, right? How did me, the church kid who was in love with God and loved people, now end up for the past 8.5 years of my life drinking and going to clubs and sleeping around and doing whatever sin I could get myself into? And again, not proud of it. I don't want to highlight that for anybody and make it seem, you know, some people give their testimony and it sounds like they miss, you know, like they're hyping it up so much. I want to show you where I went because it wasn't what the world makes it out to be. And the Bible says sin is fun for a season because it can be fun, but when it's over, it's horrible. And I literally got to that point in my life where a year ago I was broken by myself, and I'm not the guy who cries, but I was crying in my car and I was crying out to God, and I literally was exactly where the prodigal son was, in that pigsty, thinking if I could just make it back to church, if I could be in the back somewhere and just sit there and my kids could be in church, my wife could be in church, God, if I can make it back just somehow, some way to sit, and I don't care if it's in the back, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to be involved in anything. If I can just make it back, God, give them a chance. My kids, my wife, you have to do something for them. And so I remember, like, just like the prodigal son, I didn't make the connection at the time until I came back. But being there and just thinking, like, even if I could just have the scraps, right? Just like the prodigal son in the Bible, he said, even the servants eat better than this. The problem is that we don't have to get to that point. You never have to go to that point, right? Because the prodigal son, it started in his heart first. So I called my brother today because I don't know, you guys might not remember, it might have been too long ago, but my brother backslid. And when he came back, he actually stood up in the church service over there and testified. And so my brother was, again, a prodigal son, but he was kind of the opposite, right? So when I was younger and I made some mistakes, I made quite a few, if you haven't figured that out yeah, by now, but when I was 19, 20, I just made some dumb mistakes with some guys who were backsliding, and I kind of got caught up with them. It wasn't the same as now. I didn't really want to do it. I just kind of got caught up with them, and I felt like, crap, this sucks. I don't want to do this. I like being in church. So I came back, and I ended up getting married. Another couple guys came back, they ended up getting married. And my brother's sitting there. He's been here the whole time serving God. And so he's kind of like the older brother in the prodigal son story, where he looked at us as, how did they just go out there and screw up and then come back, and now God's blessing them and God's helping them, and they're getting married and they're having family. I'm the one who's been here the whole time doing right and serving God. But again, it was in his heart. And so for a long time, it was in his heart, and then eventually he gets dragged out. So when he came back, he testified of it being in his heart and it starting here, because the prodigal son had so many chances, right? He goes to his dad and says, give me my inheritance now. I want to go do what I want to do. And so I wish to God I would have thought about that first before I got out the door. You know what? Put my pride down, admit that I messed up and I made some mistakes. And you know what, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go out there and do what I want to do. Help me. You know, the prodigal son could have put it down right there. You know what, Dad, sorry. Shouldn't have said that. You know what, keep that. Let me repent and get it right now. Or his way out, way before he got all the way to the very desperate place of being in the pigsty, right? And, you know, unfortunately, we're hard-headed, and I was stubborn and had a lot of pride I didn't want to admit. And I felt like I would be embarrassed coming back, you know? And I promise you, there's way more hope than we ever imagined. Because your parents know the heartache of being out there in sin, right? So sometimes it seems like they're angry at you when you mess up. You know, I promise you that they're not, you know. That's one thing that I was very thankful for, is that my parents, even though when I was out and messing my life up, they never beat me down about it, right? And, you know, I know for a fact that John and Tamara are the same way. They don't, and most of your parents, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that they'll never make a mistake. They make their own mistakes, right? But I guarantee your parents love you so much that the moment you say, you know what, I've had enough, I want to get this right, they're right there for you. Like, it's mind-blowing to me how easy it was to come back. Because in my mind, I was so convinced that I would be humiliated and embarrassed, that everybody here probably gave up on me, right? Nobody wants to see me here. No, they probably like think that guy screwed his whole life up. Listen, I was the church kid. My whole life was church. I loved it. I wasn't, you know, everybody has their own different way, but I loved children's church. I was part of the very first group of young servants that they ever started. Like, I was in it all the way, and I loved it. Outreaches and helping with sound, all this stuff, right? But so now I got married in church. Now I'm divorced. Church kid who grew up, got married in church, and now I'm divorced. 4 kids. Now I'm out doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And in my mind, it's over. My life is over. I'll never be able to get back to that. What I love so much, and that just feeling the presence of God, the love of God, the family that we have here in this church, I'll never have that again. And it's a horrible way to live. And to think that I had no hope of ever having it back. And the only thing that broke me down was having a wife who never been to church, and she was so filled with curiosity and wanting it, to see what she saw in my family, in the lives of the people and the friends that I had, and she's, why don't you want to go back to that? Why don't you want that anymore? And I told her multiple times, it's not that I don't want it, I can't have that anymore. I can't go back. And then having my sons and my kids go through difficulties in life and go through so much pain in life, you could say, and it just hit me one day that, you know what, they're going through the craziness of this life without ever having what I had at their age. Because by the time they was their age, I had been in children's church, I had been in church, I had this family here to help me, I had so many things around me to help protect me and help teach me what to do and how to do it. And now I'm raising kids who don't have that. And they're dealing with the crap of this life and this generation, the time that we live in, and they have nothing to help them. What am I doing? And so I still felt I can't go back, I can't make it back. But God, if I can just get back just close enough to give them a chance, I'll do it. And I just felt God tell me, you know what? No, you first. If you want me to save them, you first. And I promise you, I was utterly convinced I would never be able to be saved again. And I broke down and I said, you know what, God? Fine, I'll do it. If there's anything left, I'll take it. Because we think as human beings, and if somebody did to me what I did to God, I'm not helping them no more. You know what I mean? They took advantage of me too many times, it's over. And even if it's family, yeah, I love them, but I ain't helping them no more, right? And God didn't do that to me. Just like John was talking about, listen, it literally blew my mind. I'm sitting there on my front porch by myself at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I cried out to God, and literally in an instant, like things just started falling off of me. And the wave of God's hope and God's love just like fell down upon me. The presence of God, so much so that I'm just, it's like a flood of memories of growing up in church and people in church. And every time someone from church helped me, and every miracle that God did in my family just came flooding back through my mind. It blew my mind, and I was just so stunned. And I remember saying, the only thing I remember saying was, God, if you let me feel this again, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. If I can feel your spirit, your presence, if I can hear your voice speak to me again, I'll do whatever it takes to keep that. I don't ever want to lose that again. And then even then, right, that's my moment of being in the pigsty as the prodigal son and looking back to my father's house and trying to make it back. So then I'm saved, and I'm still trying to understand, like, when you go out into the world, man, the devil wants to take advantage of that, because it's very hard as a church kid to understand the pain of what your parents went through and did, right? And I'm not taking anything away from that, because you don't want to experience it. And that's the greatest testimony to have, is to say, you know what, I got saved and gave my life to God just because he loved me so much and I love him. I don't have to go see all the pain of life to want that love, right? I wish I had that testimony that some of the other people that I grew up with have. But when you go out there and you finally do experience that pain and that hurt and that anger, it's so much worse than what you want. You know, my dad always had a saying growing up: when you sin will always cost you more than you're willing to pay and take you farther than you want to go. And it's so true, because I never imagined getting into half the crap that I got involved in. But when I decided, you know what, I gave it away, I gave it up, and God saved me, and all this stuff came flooding back. I wanted to come back, but I was too embarrassed. So I went to a different church for a few weeks, and it wasn't the same. It didn't feel like a family there. It didn't feel like the people that loved you there. And nothing against them. It was a fine church, but it just was not what we have here. And so I told my wife one morning, you know, like, well, first, I felt God was putting it on my heart to come back. And I remember telling my wife, I said, you know what, I'm not saying right now, but in the next few weeks, a month, couple months, we're probably going to end up back at the church where I grew up at. I don't know what it is. I just feel like that's where I'm supposed to go. And the next Sunday morning, I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, like God woke me up right in my bed, just and it's like I was just saw myself here in the church. And I was like, all right, that's where we're going to go. And I'm very humbled at this point because my 2 sons got saved and my wife got saved already. So things are happening fast. It's only been 1 week since I got saved. And in my mind, I had to like come crawling back. I have to come, God's gonna, I have to earn it, I have to really prove to them. I gotta make sure I just make that hard decision. And it was nothing like that, man. Like it would happen just like that. God didn't hold nothing back. When the story is talking about, he ran to him and embraced him, and he put the robe on him and he put the ring on his finger, like he's automatically a son. He wasn't a servant. In his mind, he went back and I'll just be a servant in my father's house. But his father never saw him that way. He saw him still as his son. And just like John was talking about, he sat there waiting for him to see him come back. And the moment he saw him, he ran to him and he gave him everything. Did a feast for him, everything. There was nothing held back. And that's exactly what happened to me when I came back here. I listen, I hope to God I can portray it to you so you can understand it, because it's so very powerful. But I come here as a church kid who backslid and blew everything and was divorced after being married in this very church. And I walked back in with my fiance at the time and our five out of 6 kids. And I walked back and I'm hanging back, man, because it's a lot. I was in this church for more than 25 years. And I come walking back in, and we got here early. I didn't want to come when there's a ton of people. I wanted to get in and kind of sit off to the side somewhere. And it's before Sunday school starts, or maybe right in between Sunday school and Sunday service. I'm not 100% sure. And I just remember walking in, and I'm standing by the men's bathroom over there, where the little short wall is, and I'm just kind of standing there off to the side and kind of looking, and who's where and who's doing what. And I see Sheldon Fenner, of all people, standing up there at the pulpit. And he jumped down from the pulpit and came running up to me and gave me a big hug. And Sheldon doesn't hug people. And I was literally like, what the heck happened to this guy? Like, what'd they do to him? But man, it broke me inside, man. Everything, I wanted to cry right there, but I was like, I can't do it. But to feel that welcomed the moment I walked in the door. And then as people come in, man, it's the one after another. People, oh man, we miss you. Oh man, it's good to see you all. And just feeling so loved than I had in years and years and years. And to think, literally over the next few weeks, I sat there and I thought, that's all it took, was me to finally say, you know what, God, I don't want to do it. If you can do it, do it. And just like that, man, less than 1 week, 3 people in my family get saved. We come back to church. So many people come up and are just there to love us. Pastor came up. In your mind, you get convinced of things. And in my mind, I was absolutely convinced people weren't going to look at me the same. People might be, oh yeah, you can come back, but you can just come back. Not like really wanting me there and wanting me to come back with their whole heart like they did. And again, I know it might be hard to understand, but like John said, if you could bottle it up, man, because, one of the things I was listening to Pastor Campbell preach a sermon, and he was saying that before Pastor Mitchell died, he talked to him and he asked him if he regretted anything or if he would change anything. And he said he didn't regret anything, but that if he could have, the only thing that he would change was he would have preached more about hope. And that is the biggest thing that I want anybody to get out of this tonight, is that I don't care what happens or what happens to you, where you go, what you do. Like I said, if you can catch it before you end up out there, do it. Because God will bless you and restore you more than you can ever imagine. But if that doesn't happen and you end up in that place, don't wait to come back. Because I promise you right now, God has restored and blessed us so much that I can't even tell you everything. The peace in our home, the blessing upon our life, in our mind and in our heart, our children, everything, every aspect of our life has been changed and blessed and restored to more than I ever imagined. And so in the story of the prodigal son, that ending is way better than anything that he went through. He might have squandered it, but he got it all back plus some. And that's the thing that I want you to like keep in your heart. And you know what? You don't go planning on making mistakes. You don't go planning on screwing up, backsliding, whatever. Don't. Go for God and do all you can, because you have an amazing group here of teenagers that are saved. And I don't care what level you're at. Everybody goes through things differently and learns and progresses differently. But you have so much around you and so much blessing around you that you can do so much. There's unlimited potential sitting right here in this room. And if I can just be that example of, hey, don't do what I did, do what they did, then I'll take that. Whatever God can use it for, that's what I want. And that was my prayer this whole week is, you know what, God, I don't want to sit up there and be like, oh, I went and did this, I was over here doing this and that, and I don't want to highlight that stuff. What I want to highlight is what God's done since I came back and how God brought me back. It's a miracle that I've yet to completely, comprehend. And I'm just extremely, extremely grateful. And so that's all I have. Whatever you guys can take from that, please, by all means.
Yeah.